So chapter 255. Nanu avidyathyaropitam yatra yat tadasat tatra drishtam yatha rajatam shuktikayam sthanau purushaha rajjvam sarpaha akashe tala malinatva mityadi तथा देहात्मने रवि नित्यमेव निरन्तराविविक्त प्रत्ययतया इतरेतराध्यारोपणा कृता स्यात् तदितरेतरयोः नित्यमेव असत्यं स्यात् यथा युक्ति कादिषु अविद्यारोपितानां रजतादीनां नित्यमेव अत्यन्तासत्त्वं तद्विपरीतानां च विपरीतेषु तद्वत् देहात्मनोरविद्ययैव इतरेतराध्यारोपणा कृता स्यात् तत्रैवं सति देहात्मनोरस्त्वं प्रसज्येत तच्चानिष्टं वैनाशिकपक्षत्वात् अथ तद्विपर्ययेण देह आत्मन्य विद्याया अध्यारोपितः देहस्यात्मनि सति असत्त्वं प्रसज्येत तच्चानिष्टं प्रत्यक्षादिविरोधात् तस्माद्देहात्मनो नाविद्याया इतरेतरस्मिन् अध्यारोपितो कथं तर्हि वंशस्तं भवनित्यसंयुक्तो. Disciple. Whatever is superimposed through ignorance on anything else is found to be non-existent in that thing. For example, silver in the mother of pearl, a human being in the trunk of a tree, a snake in a rope, and the form of a frying pan and blueness in the sky. Similarly, both the body and the self, always the objects of an undifferentiated knowledge, would be non-existent in each other if they were mutually superimposed. Just as silver, etc., superimposed on mother of pearl and other things, and vice versa, are always absolutely non-existent. Likewise, the self and the non-self would both be non-existent if they were similarly superimposed on each other through ignorance. But that is not desirable, as it is the position of the nihilists. If instead of a mutual superimposition, the body alone is superimposed through ignorance on the self, the body will be non-existent in the existing self. That is also not desirable, for it contradicts sense perception, etc. Therefore, the body and the self are not mutually superimposed due to ignorance. If they are not superimposed, what then? They are always in the relation of conjunction with each other like pillars and bamboos.
Wow! So what Shankara is dealing with here is a major idea in Advaita Vedanta called Anyonya Adhyasa, mutual superimposition, whereby Shankara says we superimpose upon the self the qualities of the not self. And we superimpose upon the not self the qualities of the self. And the disciples' argument, I'm going to try to simplify it here. So in our ordinary example, snake and the rope is the substratum. At the relative example here, the rope is. The snake is unreal. This is something that's imagined, doesn't exist. So I superimpose an imaginary thing that doesn't exist on something that does exist. But if the philosophy of Anyonya Adhyasa is true, how can I superimpose an imaginary snake on something that doesn't exist? They're both unreal. And that's the position of the nihilists, he says. There is no ultimate reality. That's not desirable. That's not what the scriptures say. And what it happens is there's a misunderstanding of the philosophy. So let's see if we can figure out what it really means. So consciousness is one without a second, which I experience as the perennial subject. It's me. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. That's something real. It is non-negatable. You can't ever have an experience of no I. So the first superimposition, I superimpose upon the self the qualities of the not self. I think I'm my body. I think I'm my feelings. I think I'm my thoughts. I think I am the asmita, the ego, the ahankara, sense of egoism. I think that's who I am. So I get the feeling that I am tall, I am short, I am male, I am female, I am old, I am young, I am happy, I am sad, I'm confused, I am certain. What we were chatting about before class, I do not know who I am. All those are qualities of the body, mind, and intellect, which I superimpose upon the self. If, on the other hand, I take the time to quieten the mind, in the space between my thoughts, introvert my attentive faculty and notice the knower. Just listen to the leaf blower outside. Mind tuned up. Who or what hears it? And that person falls, it disappears. So that's the first superimposition. Now, what's the second superimposition? My nature is Satchidananda. Existence, sentience, bliss absolute. So the world of name and form is essentially pratibimba, like the reflections in a mirror, seen but not real. But what's the other superimposition? I see Fang over there. She's real, separate from me. And she's smart. She's sentient. So I superimpose sentience over there. And I love you. You make me happy. I superimpose my ananda over there. So I take my own essential nature, Satchidananda Rupaham. I am of the form of existence, consciousness, and this absolute. And I otherize it over there. What happens when I do that? Then I want to go seek myself. What do you think of me? What do you think of me? If you approve of me, I'm okay. You disapprove of me, I'm not okay. So that's my take on this whole philosophy of Anyonya Adhyasa. Let's see what Shankara says, how the Guru resolves the step. Did you all understand what I said? It's a bit technical.
Yes, and I've been noticing it in myself quite often. I'm always, that was the one thing I noticed when I'm in silent meditation, my mind always went to what I thought other people were thinking of me. That was the main thing. And it's quite ridiculous because I can't even prove other people have minds, let alone what they're thinking, yet I'm always obsessed with it.
Yes.
Is what I
That's
noticed.
Justin, isn't it?
Yes, it is, sir.
Howdy all,
I told you
welcome
I'd be
back
here.
to Zoom.
How you are? Yes, thank you.
Good to hear you.
Good
All
to
right,
hear you.
let's see what the Guru says. Next verse.
Na anityatva parartha prasangat sahatatvat pararthatvam anityatvam cha vanshastam bhadideva kim cha yastu parerdehena santah kalpita atma sahatatvat pararthah tena asanghatah paro anyo nityah siddhastavat. Teacher, it is not so. For in that case, there arises the possibility of the self existing for the benefit of another and being non-eternal. The self, if in contact with the body, would be existing for the benefit of another and be non-eternal like the combination of pillars and bamboos. Moreover, the self, supported by other philosophers to be conjoined with the body, must have an existence for the sake of another. It is therefore concluded that, devoid of contact with the body, the self is eternal and characteristically different from it.
So he's also talking about, the idea was the pillar and the bamboo. So you have a pillar made of bamboo. So pillar is dependent on the existence of bamboo. Is the self dependent on the existence of the body? No, he says. The self is independent of the existence of the body. Now, to some degree, we have a direct experience of it in this very body, in this very life. If you go look at a family photo album and you see pictures of yourself as, say, a 6-year-old child, and then another photo of yourself as a teenager, and then as an adult, and then some of us we're in our golden years. Body's changed again. That body has undergone tremendous changes. But you know, I hear this from old people all the time. You know, if you sit still so nothing hurts and don't look in a mirror, you don't feel any differently than you did when you were young. Why? because the self is nityam, it is eternal. It does not change with the body change. So Fang and I were talking before class about knowing ourselves. There's a couple ways you can talk about that. Knowing yourself from the world of transactions, what we call my swadharma. You know, who am I in the world as a personality? Then there's the larger question, who am I really? That transactional self is like the flame of a candle. Now, if I light the candle here on the coffee table and the room is windless, the flame looks like a thing. But we know a flame is not a static thing. It is a dynamic event. It is the constant oxidization of the fuel, in this case, the wax. So also, this transactional self, that's probably the word, the self that does transactions in the world, the jiva, is not a thing. So if you ask the question, who am I really? It's not a good question, because the self in the world, the jiva, is constantly changing. That's why questions, are you really happy, is a stupid question. I'm happy for 10 minutes, and then I'm hungry. Then I'm thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow. And then so this individual sense of self, this jiva bhava, is constantly changing. And it's something I know. It is not the knower. It's not the knower. There is no solid personal sense of self. Something there is that is vijnana dhanam, a homogeneous mass of consciousness, which is kutustha, still unchanging like a mountain. Nirupaha, it has no form. Don't believe me. Maybe Shankara's lying, maybe Jim is lying. You slow down the mind, introvert your attention, and investigate. Who are you? See if you can find a person in there. And note all the qualities of self: happy, sad, good, bad, successful, failure, neurotic, sane. All of those go by. They go by and I see them. They are qualities of the upadis, the equipment. They are not the nature of self. And this is why any attempt to secure self is fraught with fear. It's like, oh, my shadow is dirty. Let me get the broom and clean my shadow. How's that working out for you? Don't bother me, I'm sweeping to clean my shadow. It's not there. What is a shadow? It's the occluding of light. It's all this jiva is. Any thoughts on this? So I thunder this idea over and over again. If I think I'm a person, I'm in the state of spiritual ignorance. If I think I'm a person, my ego is going to say, resolve the struggle of ego. People, places, things, and conditions have the power to make me happy. I will be okay if I change conditions or change who I am. And yoga says all of that is rooted in illusion. Satchidananda Rupa, your form is existence, consciousness, and bliss absolute. Any thoughts? Any questions? Now, what do I do about these psychological, habituated issues? So like Justin was talking about, you see the issue, I'm consumed with the opinions of other people. Or Fang was saying, you know, an issue about wanting the approval of this kind of person or that kind of person. Or I'm a better person if I have babies, you know. Or I'll be okay in the world if I have a partner. All these ideas that seem so real and seem so important. I'm not saying not to engage in the world. It's going to happen at the level of the equipment. But none of it has very much to do with making you happy. I was sharing with some friends the other night. I came from great privilege. And it was very clear to me as a young person that having money did not make my parents happy. They were miserable people. So I made the decision, I'm not going to do that. I've never been an ambitious person my whole life. It's not been a priority. And then one of my friends said, well, I'm the opposite. I came from crushing poverty. And my mother was miserable too. So poverty doesn't make you happy either. The point is our serenity, being okay, being secure, having joy is independent of the world. So here the Guru says, the self is a sangaha, not attached. Always sakshi, the witness of all phenomena. Don't worry. But ignorance comes over my mind. Then arises Jiva Bhavana. Think I'm a person. Then I gotta fix that person, change that person. That person needs to get stuff or get rid of stuff. Boy, does that seem real. And none of us are kids. How's that working out for you? Has the strategy of appeasing the needs of ego made you happy? At best, a nickel's worth of pleasure for 95 cents worth of work. And then it's gone. I want my husband to be nice to me. Well, he might do it for 5 minutes. Then you're going to change and he's going to change. That's the world. All right, next verse. David, let me interrupt real quick. How's Rebecca? I can't hear it. Oh, well. Going on. Next verse.
Tasya sanhatsya dehe dehamatradaya adhyaropitattvena asatva nityatva dedosha prasango bhavati. Tatra niratmako deha iti vayashika paksha prapti doshaha syat. Disciple. The objections that the self as the body only is non-existent, non-eternal, and so on, hold good if the self which is not conjoined with the body were superimposed on it. The body would be the body would then be without a self, and so the nihilist position comes in.
So if the body's real and the self is superimposed upon it, then the nihilistic viewpoint happens. That's his doubt. So we have that same thought in modern medicine today. I have friends who are medical people, some who have some science, and they posit that consciousness is a function of brain activity. It's because of neurons firing that awareness shows up. We get a sense of self. They talk about creatures that don't have a sense of self. You put a mirror in front of some animals and they think it's another animal. Other animals, they see themselves in the mirror and they can recognize, oh, that's me. They have a sense of self. Now, my solution to this, if you've ever had an out-of-the-body experience, or you know a friend, or have read about out-of-the-body experiences, someone has a near-death experience, and all of a sudden, they're on the ceiling looking down, and there's the doctors putting the paddles on your heart, you're pumping, or the body's jumping around, and you're like, that's pretty weird. How can that be a function of brain activity when your locus of perception is 10, 15 feet above the body? Now that's just the subtle body that's up there. No. How can people have an experience? They have siddhi, some people it happens to them spontaneously, where you know what's happening at a distance. How can that be a function of brain activity? So yoga says awareness functions through the body. Awareness itself is independent. Asangoham, I am not attached. It's not so much that we practice detachment. We come to see that myself is unattached to the equipment. We say, Sakshi Bhava, practice being the witness. Really can't. What you do is observe that, in fact, you are always the witness. It's like saying, I want you to practice being a human being. My nature. All right, these are very technical kinds of things, but they do apply to today. It's not just philosophy of 1300 years ago. Going on.
Na sat evatmanaha akashasyeva asanhatatva bhyupagamat sarvena sanhatah sa cha atmeti na niratmako dehadih sarvah syat yatha cha akasham sarvena sarvam na nirakasham bhavati evam tasman vainashika paksha prapti doshaha syat. Teacher, no, you are not right. For we admit that, like the ether, the self is by nature free from contact with anything. Just as things are not bereft of the ether, though it is not in contact with them, so the body, etc., are not devoid of the self, though it is not in contact with them. Therefore, the objection of the nihilist position coming in does not arise.
So I don't care for the translation. The word is akasha, which means space. It's not a substance like ether. So this is the example. So we have cup space. Can you in Zoom land see this? There's a cup here, cup space, room space. I'm not talking about the air, I'm talking about the space. I'm going to do a magic trick. Did I move space? Oh, I wasn't paying attention. I got to put the space back in the cup. No. What is the relationship between cup space and room space? Actually, space is a unified field, and the cup, although it's in space, space has a relationless relationship. If I break the cup, what happens to the space? Oh, I liberated cup space. No. What's happened to space when I break the cup? Nothing. So, in Gita, the early chapters, Krishna says, all this is strung on me like Mani Sutra, like gems on a thread. Oh, isn't that nice? Krishna's inside every one of us. Krishna's in you, Krishna's in you, Krishna's in you. And then much later, he says, well, actually, I am not in them. They are in me. Now, let's go to how we can directly experience what Krishna's talking about. Let's go to the dream state. Here's a really good question. Do you incarnate into a dream? Are you in the dream? Do you leave the waking state world and are transported to a dream body and you're inside it? Are you in the dream, or is the dream in you? Well, Jim, it feels like I'm in the dream. Yes. When I dream, I have a dream body, and it becomes my locus of perception. From my dream body, I peep out at the dream world. And I have inside thoughts and feelings, and I have an ego identified with it. I am this dream body. But in fact, the dream body, the dream world, the dream thoughts and feelings, and the dream ego are in my mind. Whereas Krishna says, I am not in them, they are in me, yet I pervade them. Oh, I was going to dream about San Jose, but it was too far away. My dream couldn't get there. No. You're in San Jose. San Jose is inside your mind. Now, if you dream you're in San Jose, is San Jose really in you? Oh, it was so terrible. I dreamt I was in San Jose. I woke up and the Winchester Mystery House was there in my bedroom. No. So then Krishna goes on to say, they're not really in me. Behold my divine Maya, the support of it all. So the self is like space. Now there's very important stuff to understand here. So we have Aditi and Fang sitting on the couch. So if you look behind your eyes, you can see that vast empty space of consciousness. You look behind your eyes, you see that vast empty space of consciousness. Now, Aditi, turn your head this way. Well, careful, don't want to hit her with yourself. Do I whack somebody with myself when I turn my head? Do I? Where is this self that seems behind or in back or peeping out? Do you have a self that's a little packet of consciousness? This is what the Sankhya's believe, a little purusha. You have a self, a little packet of consciousness, a little purusha. They're separate. Piece of paper, 6 holes in the paper. The room is dark. From your viewpoint, you see 6 lights shining out. The question is, are there 6 pen lights? 1 pen light shining through each hole? Or is there 1 flashlight shining through. Or Shankara's example. You make a clay pot, and in the clay pot there are holes in the clay pot. Inside is one lamp. When I look at the clay pot, I see half a dozen lights shining out of the pot. Inside, one lamp. There's only one of us here, which you experience as aham, I. It's that one vijnana jnanam, homogeneous mass of consciousness. Chidakasha, the space of consciousness itself, which peeps through these apparent names and forms, enlivening them, yet never touched by. Again, we go to a microcosmos example. Close your eyes and you visualize an elephant running around. Open your eyes. You enlivened your elephant. Did you become an elephant? Yes or no? The elephant is not other than you. But you didn't become an elephant. All right, any questions about this? This is why the scriptures say when you realize the self in you, you realize the self in everyone. Next verse.
Yat punaruktam dehasyatya antarasteva pratyakshadi virodha syaditi tanna pratyakshadibhi atmani dehasya sattva nupalabdhe nahyatmani punde badaram kshire sarpihe tile telam pitto chitramivacha pratyakshadibhi deha upalabhyate tasman pratyakshadi virodha. It is not a fact that the absolute non-existence of the body contradicts sense perception, etc., inasmuch as the existence of the body in the self is not known by these evidences. The body is not known to exist in the self by perception, etc., like a plum in a hole, ghee in milk, oil in sesame, or a picture painted on a wall. There is, therefore, no contradiction to sense perception, etc.
So the fact that we perceive the body is not proof of its existence. There are many, many things in this world, seen but not real. Ghee and milk. You see the seed in a plum, so you don't perceive it, it's there. But more importantly, we have things like train tracks meeting in the distance, castles in the clouds, and even more directly, if you have a vivid imagination, you can sit in meditation and whole stories can come if you don't brush them away. They do not exist, even though they are perceived. We certainly have all of the sense perceptions in the dream state. Seen, but imagination only. That it is perceived is not a proof of its reality. And in fact, in the second chapter of Mandukya Upanishad, in Gaudapada's Karika, his gloss, I think it's the fourth Karika, he says, the phenomenal world is quite unreal. And the proof of its unreality is that you can see it. We think seeing is believing. Table is real because I can see it. And Gaudapada breaks down all of our assumptions that sense perception is a proof of unreality. The only thing that is absolutely real and non-negatable, never subject to question or doubt, is I am, I know, I shine. That's the prakasha, the light of awareness. So I always find this quite interesting. I'm an atheist, agnostic. I don't know if God exists. I'm pretty sure God doesn't exist. Table exists, chair exists, God exists. And in the end, it's exactly the opposite. It's the world that is mysterious. We have such proof of this. What's her name? Kelly Lake, the candidate for governor in Arizona. She's convinced Trump won the 2020 election. She's convinced there was hanky-panky. She should have won the governor's race. She's convinced of this. That poor young man, 22 years old, who goes into the gay bar in Colorado Springs and kills people. What was his reality? Drag queens, they're so dangerous. You know, a child is more likely to be molested by a priest than a drag queen. Made it up. Just because it's a belief, it's not powerful. 5 people died. 17 people injured. So, what do we do with this teaching? Take the world with a grain of salt. Don't take yourself, small s. Don't take the world too seriously. Something there is that's the substratum. That's real. That is. That is a changeless reality. All going to work out. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Katham tarhi pratyakshatya prasiddhatmani dehatyaropana dehe cha atmaropana. Disciple, how can then there be the superimposition of the body, etc., on the self, which is not known by self-perception, etc., and that of the self on the body?
So, how is it that I can superimpose the body on the self when the self is not known? And how can the self be superimposed on the body when we talked about projecting the Satchit Ananda into external things? We also projected it fundamentally onto the self. The body is, and I think it's me. How can that happen? Here's a secret. Self is never unknown. How is it that it cannot be known by the mind, speech, senses? It is unknown and unknowable by the equipment. So, here is the answer to this. How do you know you are you? Do you exist? No, I'm a Buddhist, I don't exist. You've experienced this? Yes, I was in meditation and I saw that I don't exist. Who saw it? You cannot deny consciousness. But how does it know? I don't know. It's known. Yeah. Do you see, hear, taste, touch, or smell yourself? No, that's the body. Do I emote myself? No. I'm feeling. No, you're not. You know feelings, they go by. You're not a thought. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. It would be interesting if you'd been a meditator. What would happen if you quit thinking? See if you disappeared. Yet you do not doubt that you are. In the world, we have what's called the triputi, the triple factor, knower, knowing, and known. I, the knower, through seeing, cognized table. No. I, the knower, through hearing, cognized traffic. No. Go through all the five senses. I, through manas, mind, no feelings and judgments. I, through buddhi, intellect, no thoughts. How do you know you were you? I don't know, I just know it. I mean, yes. You are Swayambhu, self-evident. Swayam Jyoti, self-effulgent, self-luminous. A light bulb is used to light the objects in the room, but I don't need a bigger light bulb to light the light bulb. It is self-luminous. There's the light bulb. It lights. You are self-luminous. You are self-evident. And the great cosmic joke, that's the only real knowledge, everybody already has it. So Fang and I were talking before class. Oh, I want to know myself. I know who I am. Do you exist? Do you?
Yes,
Yeah. Are you conscious of stuff?
most of the time.
When are you never not conscious? You may not be conscious of particular thoughts and feelings, but you're conscious of something. Even when you're asleep. You were not unconscious in sleep. Otherwise, when you woke up in the morning, you couldn't say, oh, I slept so soundly. I can't remember a thing. You can't remember something you haven't experienced. But how do you know it? The most miserable of creatures does not doubt that they exist, does not doubt that they're conscious. What are you aware of? My misery. Yeah. Meaning I'm aware of pain in the body, sorrow in the mind, confusion in the intellect. But I am, I shine, is never in doubt. So this is the great cosmic joke. Everybody already, always knows the self. People may think, oh, I'm ignorant of the self. I don't know the self because I'm waiting to have an experience of the self out there. Who's going to have the experience of whatever it is you have out there? Oh, you never lack the experience of the self. The great doubt is, Hadyasa, I superimpose on that direct experience all sorts of nonsense, all sorts of thoughts, like the body. And in my mind, I superimpose on the body. That's myself. I'm too fat. This is why, in the end, self-realization is not an experience. It's knowledge. When in the mind you finally get it, oh, it's me. It's my constant, eternal experience of I. It's the most ordinary awareness of the most ordinary waking state. When are you ever not you? Coach, I went to the store yesterday. When I walked in through the door of Whole Foods, I left myself outside. No, never happens. You were always you. Now find out who you are. Investigate. So in the mind, I'm clear. Aham brahmasmi. I am that Brahman. Asangaha. Asansakta. Never attached to the world of name and form. Always the same. Same. All right, one more.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's directly related, but so you talk about how the mind is aware of feelings, the body.
No.
Well, I mean,
The
not
mind,
the mind, but
is feelings.
yes, like like that's the instrument through which feelings are perceived, and the body is the instrument through which sensation is perceived, and all these things. So my question is, how is energy perceived, or through what instrument is it perceived?
Well, the pranamaya kosha, the energy body. It is perceived. So think of the chitta, the stuff of mind, like the monitor in your computer. Now you got your little laptop, right? So right now Zoom is there. But you could also bring up a Word document. You could go online and do a Google search. You could bring up a spreadsheet. So the function is what changes. But where it takes place is always looking at the monitor, right? So in the end, we don't have to worry too much. Is this manas or is this buddhi? You know, I'm aware of sense perception. I'm aware of energy. I'm aware of feelings. I'm aware of thoughts. I'm aware of egoism. I'm aware of the darkness of deep sleep. I'm aware of alien beings talking to me. Doesn't matter, whatever it is you're aware of. It's always awareness plus phenomena. So, you know, it's mind, you could say, that's aware of energy. If you want to say mind is where all of it happens. Does that make it a little more useful? Your mind is not aware. You are awareness. Remember Swamiji's spiritual algebra. What is mind? Mind is the awareness plus thought flow, phenomena. Vishwa. Remove thought flow from the mind. All that's left is awareness. I tend to think I have awareness in my mind. You are awareness. I call it mind when it's feelings and judgments. I call it intellect when it's a thought. I don't know what the instrument would be when I'm aware of energy. It doesn't matter in the end. Am I making sense?
Yeah, because it's not the self.
Huh?
But the energy is not the self. So it's like.
Now, what's my problem if I'm doing a lot of energy work or I'm Kundalini yogi? Oh, my Kundalini's going up. That's what's important. Oh, yes, my third eye is buzzing. Oh, I'm progressing. Oh, I can feel my third chakra. That's what I'm going to focus on. That's no different than focusing on the body. Focusing on the clothes you're wearing. Focusing on the car you're driving. It's cognizable stuff. In the world of transaction, can be very valuable. If I'm driving my car and I get a check engine light, very valuable that I pull over and take it to a garage. But that's not me. I can open the door and get out of the car. So understand, when we say you are not the body, you are not the energy, the prana, you are not the mind, you are not the intellect, you are not the ego sense, you are not pure ignorance. It doesn't mean these things are wrong or bad. The problem is identification with them. When I think that's me, I start to get in trouble. All right, quit here. Did that help
Yes.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.